Now I want to turn to a former Breitbart Texas writer, one of the top young writers in her generation, a real grinder, as we call it. And she's got a major book coming out from Hachette, who we think is one of the finest publishing houses around, a very quality publishing house called Government Gone Wild. It's Kristin Tate. Kristin, let me ask you, you're a millennial. We were talking about millennials in the last hour with Alex. What was it that really drove you, because you were a cutting-edge kind of investigative journalist, what was it that drove you to say, hey, I want to take some time off and really focus on do a book? What was the process of what drove you to do that?
Well, as this election nears, this is obviously a critical election. Our political environment has become toxic. We're $19 trillion in debt. And my generation, the millennials, we could be the nation's largest voting bloc in this election. But unfortunately, millennials, as we all know, don't show up to vote. So my project with this book is to get people interested in politics, to wake them up from their slumber, to combat this apathy that I see all the time, but do it in a way that grabs people's attention in a really fun way and gets them excited about these issues, because it's unrealistic to think that millennials who are not already interested in politics are going to pick up a wonkish book by like Ted Cruz if they're not already interested. So we need to reach out to these folks in a language that grabs their attention and it's fun for them. So that was really my project here.
Kristin, let me ask you, since civics is not taught like it was for my generation and before, and so people don't come up with a really grounding or an understanding of government and the history of our republic, when they get to be in this millennial generation, right, and even the generation behind that, when you write a book on politics, what's the process of how you're going to get people interested? Because we keep hearing that millennials are just not that into it, right? And although you see on Bernie Sanders that he's got what I call the children's crusade, most of those kids are really, into kind of free stuff. They're socialists,
right.
And I'm not saying they're bad kids. I'm saying I just don't think they understand how the real world works. How do you what's the process, or how are you going to try to get a generation that hasn't shown a lot of engagement? And part of it's because of the way they've been taught in school. How are you going to try to get them engaged?
Sure. Well, I think that the messaging, the packaging is just as important as the messaging itself. So we got to reach out to these kids in ways that are not just inspiring, but are also fun for them. So, for instance, in my book, I include a lot of pop culture references. My language is very colloquial in this book. I want the readers to feel like they're having a conversation with me, because again, millennials don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to read some big wonkish, boring book. We all have short attention spans, Steve. You got to remember, my generation has grown up on Facebook and the internet. So if we want to reach out to these folks and get them interested in these critical issues, it's very important that we message in an effective way to grab their attention.
Let me ask you the last thing, and we're going to have you back on in the days and weeks ahead. Hachette, the book is called Government Gone Wild. It's going to come out later in the month. You can pre-order it on Amazon right now. The author is Kristin Tate. She's a former correspondent with Breitbart News. Kristin, when you look at the Democratic thing, it's a little boring, but you definitely get you get a centrist or center-left or progressive in socialist is Hillary Clinton, who's a globalist, and you've got Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. So people can kind of see that difference on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, you got the establishment, then you got kind of this populist, nationalist, limited government, libertarian group that's both Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. But on our side, it's gotten so personal and so nasty. Do you think that if millennials are to get attracted to these things, that they look at the Republican side and say, hey, I thought we were going to be talking about the great issues of the day, and here I have guys talking about each other's wives. Do you think that could turn people off to what we're trying to do, is generate interest about their future, about how important American sovereignty is, how important border security is, how important trade policy is? Do you think that gets lost, that millennials will sit there and go, this is a food fight? These people act like the kids I knew in high school, not people who can lead our country.
I do. I think that this nonsense is hurting the Republican Party a lot. I think that what we really need to do as Republicans, and what these candidates must do, is they need to look at what Obama did in '08 and then again in 2012. They need to reach out to millennials on networks that they are already visiting. So that means doing interviews on sites like BuzzFeed and Vox. And remember Obama went on MTV back in '08. That was a good thing for connecting with millennials. And we have to take these economic policies that really do bring prosperity to young people and break down these extremely complicated policies into very attractive, snappy talking points that will convey these messages of opportunity to young people in very easy to understand ways that will get them excited about Republicans and the future that Republican policies can bring.
Kristin, tell us about the release date of the book and how they get more information about the book and pre-order it.
Absolutely. So Government Gone Wild is coming out on April 26th. But it can be pre-ordered now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's a really fun read. I think everyone, this is not just a book for millennials, by the way. Everyone will enjoy this book. I did a ton of research, and it's a fun read. Again, every chapter is a different subject, so you can kind of jump around from chapter to chapter. It's a light read. So Government Gone Wild, April 26th, but it can be pre-ordered now on Amazon.
Okay, we're going to have an article up today on the site of this and a link to that. Kristin Tate, former correspondent, Breitbart News, one of the top young investigative reporters of her generation. She's a millennial. She's writing a big book coming out on April 26th from Hachette, Government Gone Wild. Kristin, thank you so much for taking time away from your day. I know it's very busy to join us here.
Thank you so much, Steve.